Mr. Fisher?
Yes, Captain Legare.
Yes.
Do come in. Here we are. This is very good of you. Let me have your coat, sir. Thank you. Oh, do take a seat.
Thanks.
Now, how about that drink?
You know, I got out thinking I've seen you before somewhere.
You know, it's funny you should say that. The moment you walk through that door, Wait a minute. Legat? You're not Legat. Swan. C.J. Swan. Or is it C.A.?
C.A.? You've got a better memory than I have. Fisher? When did we meet?
Oh, it must be nearly 15 years ago. Bennett's house. You wouldn't remember me. I only came your last term.
It's a small world.
It certainly is. Well, I was planning to palm you off with an indifferent port, but I think this calls for a special drink. Let's see what we have here. How about this?
Perfect. By the way, how did you know my car was for sale?
Your garage told me.
Well, that's odd. I don't think I mentioned it to anyone there.
I was stopping for some petrol. I happened to mention that I was looking for an American car, and they gave me your phone number. I say it is for sale, isn't it?
Well, of course.
Good. Well, I refuse to discuss the price any further until you've had at least 3 drinks.
I warn you, I drive a half bargain, drunk or sober.
So do I.
You know, I think I must have seen you since we left school.
Ever been to Wimbledon?
Well, that's it. Wendy's. Tony Wendy's. Now, what's all this about Fisher?
What's all this about Legat? Would you care for a cigar?
No, I'll stick to my pipe if you don't mind.
Oh, that's one habit you've changed.
Oh?
Yes, you used to smoke cigars at school.
Yes, I believe I did. Well, I could get at the time.
I remember barging into Boving's study one evening when I was fagging for him. You were all playing poker, and you were smoking an enormous cigar.
Yes, I remember. So that frightened little face was you, was it? Of course, we thought it was Daddy Bennett on the prowl.
Oh, Daddy Bennett, yes. He's still alive and kicking, apparently. Must be nearly 80.
I suppose so.
You see, he left the same term you did.
Well, don't I know it? I spent half the term collecting for his goodbye present.
And the whole lot got pinched, didn't it?
Yes, over 20 quid. I kept it in a money box in my study. I remember the morning I found it had gone. It still makes me sweat.
It was the bootman called.
Yes, poor old Alfred.
They found the box in his boot cupboard, didn't they?
Yes, but not the money.
15 years ago. What are you doing now?
Oh, I till in property. You know, I don't follow tennis very closely. Did you play at Wimbledon this year?
No, I gave up tennis about a year ago. One has to earn a living some of the time, and I've had a pretty good innings. I went around the world 3 times.
I suppose you were treated like a film star.
Film stars get paid.
Yes, there is that.
Of course, I managed to save a bit on expenses. In 7 years, I put away just over 1,000. And not much compared with a film star.
And what are you doing nowadays? Making up for lost time?
I sell sports equipment. Not very lucrative, but it gives me plenty of spare time.
Well, I'm here to tell you that you managed to run a very comfortable flat.
My wife has some money of her own. Otherwise, I should hardly feel like blowing my 1,000 on your car.
1,100? Yes, people with capital don't realise how lucky they are. I wouldn't resign to living on what I can earn.
You could always marry for money.
Yes, I believe some people make a business of that.
I know I did.
What, do you mean the girl that you fell in love with happened to have some money of her own?
No, I always intended to marry for money. I had to. Whilst I was in first-class tennis, I met wealthy people from all over the world. I decided to snap up the first chance I got. I nearly married a tubby Boston dead with $5 million. It got as far as pictures in the papers. And then she threw me over for an heir to a chain of grocery stores. It's funny how they stick together. Finally, I settled for a good deal less, a lot more easily. My wife had been a fan of mine for some time.
Well, that's putting it pretty bluntly. You say you married for money. Why do you think she married you?
I was a tennis star. She would never have married a commercial traveller.
Yes, but she gave up tennis a year ago. She didn't leave.
She nearly did.
Oh, let me win this. You've got a groggy knee.
Thanks, old boy. In fact, let's have that bottle over here, shall we?
Good idea.
But by the way, would you like to hear about it?
Hear what?
About my wife? How she nearly left me.
It's your privilege. You're the host.
Thanks, old boy. Only I think it would help. Just man-to-man advice, you know?
I'm at your service.
After we were married, I went on playing at the various championships and Sheila tagged along. I think she found it all a bit much. Hospitality outside this country can be pretty exhausting. When we got back, she tried to persuade me to give up playing tennis, play being husband instead. In the end, we compromised. I went alone to America for the grass court season and returned after the national championships. I soon realized a lot had happened while I'd been away. For one thing, she wasn't in love with me anymore. There were phone calls that would end abruptly when I happened to walk in. And there was an old school friend whom she used to visit from time to time. Then one day, we had a row. I wanted to play a covered court tournament, and as usual, she didn't want me to go. I was in the bedroom when the phone rang. It all sounded pretty urgent. After that, she seemed rather keen that I should play in that tournament after all. So I packed my kit into the car and drove off. I parked the car 2 streets away and walked back on my tracks. 10 minutes later, she left this house and took a taxi. I took another. Her old school friend lived in a ramshackle studio flat in Chelsea. I could see them through the window as he cooked spaghetti through a gas ring. They didn't say much. They just looked very natural together. Funny how you can tell when people are in love. When I left them, I started to walk. I can't remember ever feeling so scared. I dropped into a pub and had a few drinks. As I sat in the corner, I began to think of all sorts of things. I thought of 3 different ways of killing. I even thought of killing her. Well, now that seemed a far more sensible idea. I'd been around and picked up some expensive tastes. Big tennis had finished with me. Now it all seemed to have been wasted. We had made out our wills only a few months previously, leaving everything we had to each other in case of accidents. Hers worked out at just over 29,000. Investments, mostly. Quite easy to get at. I even began to work out how it could be done. I would make it look like a burglary. I would break into my own flat. It would appear as if she had caught him in the act, and whilst trying to stop her from screaming, he had overdone it. Of course, I was needing an alibi. Now, this part wasn't so simple. And it was whilst I was trying to invent one that I suddenly saw something which completely changed my mind. Well, I never did play in that tournament after all. By the time I'd returned here, she'd been back some time. I told her that I'd thought things over and had decided to give up playing tennis for good and look after her instead. That was exactly a year ago tonight. Well, as things turned out, I needn't have got so worked up after all. Apparently that spaghetti evening had been a sort of fond farewell. The boyfriend had to go to New York on a job.
New York?
Yes. There were long letters from there. They usually arrived on Thursdays. She burnt all of them, all except one. She used to transfer it from handbag to handbag. It was always with her. That letter became an obsession with me. Then one day at Victoria Station, I managed to slip her handbag under my overcoat while we were having a cup of tea. She didn't notice it was missing until we were on the train, and when she went back to look for it, I hid it in my suitcase.
So why are you telling me all this?
Because I wanted to tell somebody for a very long time.
Yes, but why me?
Because you are the only person that I can trust. That letter made very interesting reading. I had a violent desire to have it all out with her, but I couldn't. You see, we'd been getting along extremely well at the time, and somehow that seemed to make it even worse. I wanted to know all about her, and I wanted to hear it from her. But she went on keeping it to herself. So in the end, I tried to force her hand by blackmailing her.
Blackmail?
Yes, I sent her 2 notes saying that unless she sent £50 to a certain address, the letter would be shown to her husband. I felt certain that would make her tell me all about it. But it didn't.
You mean she actually paid £50?
Oh, she posted it. Of course I didn't collect it. But I did keep the letter. Here.
On paper. So this is it?
Yes. Thank you. Anyway, that did. It must have. Fear of God into them. Because shortly after that, the letter stopped, and we lived happily ever after.
Did she ever see him again?
Not until this evening. He rang her up yesterday, and she invited him round for a drink. Oh, I can see it's all going to be very civilized. One of those clean, 3-cornered relationships, so fashionable nowadays. She takes him to the theatre this evening. I take him to a stag party tomorrow night.
Aren't you afraid it may develop just that way? Good friends after the divorce, sort of thing.
The happy couple. Here's him chatting with the bride's former husband.
Yes.
No, I don't think so. Funny to think that a year ago, I was sitting in that Knightsbridge pub actually planning to murder her. I might have done it too. If, as I say, I haven't seen something which completely changed my mind.
Well, what did you see?
I saw you.